Hej! För 1 år sedan ungefär så bestämde sig Borlänge kommun för att vi ska bli klimatneutrala till år 2030 och vi ska bli ett svenskt viable city. Ett sådant arbete gör man inte ensam. Nej, man behöver medborgare, föreningar och företag med sig för att lyckas. En sak som vi har gjort under det här året är att vi har skapat en organisation med 13 tongivande företag i Borlänge. De har skrivit klimatkontrakt med Borlänge kommun och de går också i bräschen och jobbar med de här hållbarhetsfrågorna. Det här är väldigt inspirerande för andra företag, så idag så har vi en hel kö med företag som vill vara med och ansluta till det här arbetet. Vi ser också att det har gjort oss attraktiva som inflyttnings- och etableringsort. Vi har företag som redan har flyttat in, sådana som är på väg, och bland annat så byggs det en batterifabrik här i Borlänge just nu. Men av hävd så är vi en gammal industriort. Vi har gammal tung industri och vi har ny industri. Och att se hur de jobbar med sitt klimatarbete, det är otroligt inspirerande. Det handlar mycket om innovation och utveckling och mycket har gett eko i hela världen. 1/5 av alla våra utsläpp i stan härrör sig till förbränning av avfall. Här har vi ett stort jobb att göra, men med hjälp utav att det var lättare att sortera rätt och informationsinsatser och differentierade taxor så har vi under det här året minskat mängden avfall till förbränning med så mycket som 10%. Det är vi stolta över. Vi jobbar också aktivt med vår stadsmiljö. Bland annat så bygger vi om gatorna så vi får mera plats för cyklister och gångtrafikanter och mindre plats för bilarna. Det blir inte bara klimatvänligt, det blir också mycket trevligare stad tack vare det. Vi jobbar avslutningsvis också med maten som serveras i kommunal regi. Bland annat skolmaten. Här har vi legat i topp i Sverige i många år med närproducerat och ekologiskt. Det fortsätter vi såklart med. Men som ni vet, den som slutar att bli bättre slutar att vara bra. Och vi fortsätter hela tiden att jobba aktivt med vårt klimatarbete. För vi vill ju ligga i framkant, både nu och i framtiden.
Välkommen till ett snöigt Linköping. Jag heter Mikael Sanfridsson och är borgmästare i staden. Linköping växer så det knakar. Vi har passerat 165 000 invånare och siktet är inställt på 250 000 om några år såklart. Vårt valspråk är Linköping där idéer blir verklighet. Vår styrka är samverkan mellan akademin, forskningen, samhället, näringslivet och företagen. Det ska vi dra nytta av i klimatomställningen framöver. Tillsammans med Linköpings universitet, teknikföretagen i Linköping Science Park, Cleantech Östergötland och Tekniska verken så får det samarbetet en stor påverkan på klimatomställningsarbetet i Linköping. Det är också en väldigt innovativ miljö som möjliggör den här utvecklingen och som också bidrar till att företagen kan utvecklas och utveckla sina idéer i en innovativ miljö. Ett av våra senaste utvecklingsprojekt i staden är Tekniska verkens arbete med att utveckla en ackumulatortank för att kunna lagra hetvatten i fjärrvärmenätet för att kapa energitopparna i samband med kallt väder. 2 viktiga resultat som vi ändå kan se när vi mäter målen är för det första att koldioxidutsläppen per invånare har minskat med 35% samtidigt som stadens befolkning har ökat med 18 000. Klart att det finns mer att göra, men det är ändå glädjande att kunna se resultatet. Samtidigt så har solelsproduktionen i Linköping ökat med 460% de senaste åren och utbyggnaden fortsätter. Vi har alldeles nyligen tagit ett nytt klimat- och energiprogram med målsättningar framåt. Och nu så pågår arbetet med att forma den praktiska handlingsplanen som ska tas hela vägen fram. Det här arbetet ska ske tillsammans med forskningen, näringslivet, men det ska också ske tillsammans med föreningsliv, civilsamhället och medborgarna. Och en del i det här programmet handlar om att den här klimatomställningen ska ske på ett rättvist sätt och värderas utifrån de här olika gruppernas intressen och situationer.
Jag heter Anders Almgren och jag är ordförande i kommunstyrelsen i Lunds kommun. Lund är Sveriges äldsta stad med en lång och rik historia. Men samtidigt är Lund platsen där vi skapar framtiden. Få andra platser har alstrat lika många innovationer och nya lösningar som har flugit över världen. 2030 ska Lund vara en klimatneutral och fossilbränslefri kommun. Men också en kommun som är anpassad till ett klimat i förändring. Det är väldigt högt uppsatta mål, men det är också vad som krävs. Vår ambition är att hela Lund och alla aktörer här, organisationer och enskilda, offentliga och privata, aktivt ska arbeta tillsammans för att nå detta mål. I Lund är vi idag nästan 130 000 invånare och för mig är ett ambitiöst klimatarbete en självklarhet för att skapa en attraktiv kommun där andra vill bo och verka och leva. Lund präglas mer än något av närheten och samarbetet med Lunds universitet. Och vår väg till att ställa om till ett hållbart samhälle bygger på fakta, innovation och samverkan. Till exempel så granskas vår klimatpolitik varje år av vårt klimatpolitiska råd med ledande forskare inom området. Lund har tagit flera stora steg i klimatarbetet redan. Inte minst när vi införde 100% fossilbränslefri fjärrvärme. Och det senaste året har vi fortsatt arbetet med en ny avfallsplan och en plan för klimatneutralt och cirkulärt byggande. Vi har också köpt in mer fossilbränslefria arbetsredskap och vi har haft ett ungdomsting som var dedikerat enbart till klimatarbetet. Vi har tagit fram en pendlarkarta och vi har satsat mer på samåkning. Vi har också påbörjat ett storskaligt innovationsprojekt kopplat till energi och mobilitet i norra Lund. Och vi fortsätter att engagera näringsliv och organisationer för att vara med i omställningen. Vi är nu också en internationell förebild i egenskap av att vara årets globala klimatstad enligt Världsnaturfonden. Och vi är en av de 100 städer i EU som man utsett att gå före för att bli klimatneutrala just 2030. Det innebär att Lund mer än någonsin också ska visa vägen för andra. Nästa steg för oss för att öka takten i omställningen är utvecklingen av en klimatinvesteringsplan där vi ska visa hur gröna investeringar gynnar hela Lund. Vi satsar också på cirkulärt byggande i den nya stadsdelen Västerbro och ännu fler hållbara transporter. Vi ska också införa en växthusgasbudget där minskningarna i utsläpp steg för steg kopplas till kraftfulla och konkreta åtgärder och vi ska stärka arbetet med egen grön hållbar energiproduktion. Allt det här och mycket mer händer i Lund. Här skapar vi framtiden med kunskap, innovation och öppenhet.
Hej! För ett år sedan ungefär så bestämde sig Borlänge kommun för att vi ska bli klimatneutrala till år 2030 och vi ska bli ett svenskt viable city. Ett sådant arbete gör man inte ensam. Nej, man behöver medborgare, föreningar och företag med sig för att lyckas. En sak som vi har gjort under det här året är att vi har skapat en organisation med 13 tongivande företag i Borlänge. De har skrivit klimatkontrakt med Borlänge kommun. Och de går också i bräschen och jobbar med de här hållbarhetsfrågorna. Det här är väldigt inspirerande för andra företag. Så idag så har vi en hel kö med företag som vill vara med och ansluta till det här arbetet. Vi ser också att det har gjort oss attraktiva som inflyttnings- och etableringsort. Vi har företag som redan har flyttat in, sådana som är på väg. Och bland annat så byggs det en batterifabrik här i Borlänge just nu. Men av hävd så är vi en gammal industriort. Vi har gammal tung industri och vi har ny industri. Och att se hur de jobbar med sitt klimatarbete, det är otroligt inspirerande. Det handlar mycket om innovation och utveckling och mycket har gett eko i hela världen. 1/5 av alla våra utsläpp i stan härrör sig till förbränning av avfall. Här har vi ett stort jobb att göra, men med hjälp utav att det var lättare att sortera rätt och informationsinsatser och differentierade taxor så har vi under det här året minskat mängden avfall till förbränning med så mycket som 10%. Det är vi stolta över. Vi jobbar också aktivt med vår stadsmiljö. Bland annat så bygger vi om gatorna så vi får mera plats för cyklister och gångtrafikanter och mindre plats för bilarna. Det blir inte bara klimatvänligt. Det blir också mycket trevligare stad tack vare det. Vi jobbar avslutningsvis också med maten som serveras i kommunal regi. Bland annat skolmaten. Här har vi legat i topp i Sverige i många år med närproducerat och ekologiskt. Det fortsätter vi såklart med. Men som ni vet, den som slutar att bli bättre slutar att vara bra. Och vi fortsätter hela tiden att jobba aktivt med vårt klimatarbete. För vi vill ju ligga i framkant, både nu och i framtiden.
Välkommen till ett snöigt Linköping. Jag heter Mikael Samfridsson och är borgmästare i staden. Linköping växer så det knakar. Vi har passerat 165 000 invånare och siktet är inställt på 250 000 om några år såklart. Vårt valspråk är Linköping där idéer blir verklighet. Vår styrka är samverkan mellan akademin, forskningen, samhället, näringslivet och företagen. Det ska vi dra nytta av i klimatomställningen framöver. Tillsammans med Linköpings universitet, teknikföretagen i Linköping Science Park, Cleantech Östergötland och Tekniska verken så får det samarbetet en stor påverkan på klimatomställningsarbetet i Linköping. Det är också en väldigt innovativ miljö som möjliggör den här utvecklingen och som också bidrar till att företagen kan utvecklas och utveckla sina idéer i en innovativ miljö. Ett av våra senaste utvecklingsprojekt i staden är Tekniska verkens arbete med att utveckla en ackumulatortank för att kunna lagra hetvatten i fjärrvärmenätet för att kapa energitopparna i samband med kallt väder. Två viktiga resultat som vi ändå kan se när vi mäter målen är för det första att koldioxidutsläppen per invånare har minskat med 35% samtidigt som stadens befolkning har ökat med 18 000. Klart att det finns mer att göra, men det är ändå glädjande att kunna se resultatet. Samtidigt så har solelsproduktionen i Linköping ökat med 460% de senaste åren och utbyggnaden fortsätter. Vi har alldeles nyligen tagit ett nytt klimat- och energiprogram med målsättningar framåt. Och nu så pågår arbetet med att forma den praktiska handlingsplanen som ska tas hela vägen fram. Det här arbetet ska ske tillsammans med forskningen, näringslivet, men det ska också ske tillsammans med föreningsliv, civilsamhället och medborgarna. Och en del i det här programmet handlar om att den här klimatomställningen ska ske på ett rättvist sätt och värderas utifrån de här olika gruppernas intressen och situationer.
This year we're pleased to welcome you back live here from Stockholm. I'm Per Granqvist. I'm going to be your guide for this event. We're going to focus on the development of Klimatkontrakt 2030, the Swedish City Climate Contract 2030. The European Viable Cities Day is a collaboration between the European Commission and Viable Cities, which is Sweden's largest innovation program. As we're waiting for the final guests to arrive, I will take this opportunity to give some of you who are new here or just joined us for the first time a little bit of background and context, because that was I lacked the first time I was at this event. I must then admit I wasn't quite sure what Viable Cities was and what they were doing, if they were important or not. I mean, it sounded interesting, but you know, anything does, right? So it took me a couple of months to realize, and it wasn't really on this day 3 years ago I realized that Viable Cities might actually be the shit, as we say in the business. I mean, there's been a couple of delegations at our office with fine people from faraway countries and some ambassadors, minister, the odd director general, you know, that sort of people. But I was sort of never part of that. Maybe because my boss was also trying to figure out if I was to be kept or not. I don't know. Anyway, I was then invited to the high-level lunch that always precedes these meetings, and for various reasons, random reasons really. And there was a French guy who looked vaguely familiar, vaguely. So I was sort of Googling him, image Googling him under the table, trying to understand. And it turned out that was Laurent Fabius, the former Prime Minister of France, and the guy who led the negotiations of the Paris Agreement. And so I figured out that if he wants to come along and understand what Viable Cities is doing, it was probably something new and interesting. And since then, a lot of important people have come here and asked questions and returned inspired what our 23 cities are doing. And we've all been invited all over the world to talk about what we're doing. And we often say no, because we're busy working on this stuff, this giant, hairy problem together. At the same time, we do our very best to share our experiences and learn from others to speed up the transition, hence events like this. And so I guess that's the thing. Our cities are actually doing the work. They're actively doing stuff others talk about. And in addition, they're sharing experiences and learning from other pioneers in Sweden and elsewhere. And flattering enough, others have been inspired by cities to set up their own thing. We now have a sister program in Spain, Cities 2030, that's CTES, Spanish joke. And the EU, they have a mission aiming to setting up 100 climate neutral cities by a couple of years back. So that's all part of the same mission, and we're actively involved from Sweden. So we inspire each other. During this past year, for example, I've learned how to finance transition. I learned that from Turku in Finland. How to mobilize a broad range of actors, Valencia in Spain, gracias. And we're all now part of this movement of cities that is mobilizing. And I'm now getting the signal that we can start, so I'll just end up saying that this is actually then a bridge between the Swedish and European efforts towards the mission of climate neutral cities. So, as we say in Swedish, hey. We're going to start this with the formal welcoming speeches from our host at European Commission and Viable Cities. I'm going to hand over to Erik von Pistolkors, Deputy Head of the European Commission Representation in Sweden, and Cecilia Schelin Cedergård, who's the Chairperson of Viable Cities. Welcome.
Right, thank you. Is this on now? Yes, it is. Great. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome. My name is, you just heard, is Erik von Pistolkors. I'm the acting head of the Commission Representation Office here, and I shall be very brief, just to start by saying that we're delighted to host you today, as we've done before. I think this event today is all about what our office is supposed to do in Sweden, is to sort of bridge initiatives from headquarters in Brussels to the local level, and cities are very much part of this. The Green Deal is clearly going to be implemented at the local level, and cities is a fundamental part of that. We've just had a very interesting lunch together with some of the participants where I quickly learned about this. I recognize the presence of former Director General Allan Larsson in the room, who is one of the brainchilds of this. So I look forward to the deliberations this afternoon, and that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erik. And this is working really well. I also would like to welcome you all. My name was Cecilia Schelin Cedergård, and I'm the chairman of Viable Cities. I'm a proud chairman. And it's really nice and big to be here again. It's my second time. But let me start with citing Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General from the COP27 meeting just recently. Our planet is fast approaching tipping points that will make climate chaos irreversible. It is the defining issue of our age. It is the central challenge of our century. It's unacceptable, outrageous, and self-defeating to put it on the back burner. And in real Swedish it's det här är ord och inga visor, hörni. Verkligen straightforward. At this event, the European Viable Cities Day, we will celebrate action and those who really do the work. We will put a spotlight on the action for climate neutrality and how to get there faster. Accelerating action to make the transition happen is the purpose of our common European-wide mobilization of the cities towards the mission Climate Neutral and Smart Cities on 2030. Here today, mayors of 23 cities, Director Generals of government agencies and viable cities will sign the 2022 version of the Swedish Climate City Contract 2030. I'm grateful to the European Commission and all our international partners for showing leadership in the mission Climate Neutral and Smart Cities 2030, mobilizing cities in Europe and beyond. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you so much for that. A year ago, the European Commission launched a call for cities to join this European mission on climate neutral and smart cities. And the objective, as we've heard, is to achieve 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030 and to ensure that these cities act as experimentation and innovation hubs to enable all European cities to follow suit by 2050, when we're all going to be climate neutral. We're very proud that 7 of our 23 cities, Göteborg, Gävle, Helsingborg, Lund, Malmö, Stockholm and Umeå, are all part of that mission. Although, to be honest, all our 23 cities are frontrunners and part of this mission, this movement, acting as inspirations for cities in Sweden, within the European Union and the world. And to talk about that mission of 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030, we're very honored to be joined by Mr. Eero Ailio from the European Commission. He looks like this. You can come up while I just explain who you are. He's the policy advisor on energy transition and local governments to the Director General on Energy and at the Directorate of Just Transition, Consumers, Energy Efficiency and Innovation. In other words, a perfect guy to talk about this. The floor is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, that was like a mouthful, but well, there we are. That's the reality at the Commission. Sometimes, yes. Thank you very much for having me here. Good morning, everyone. Great to be in Stockholm. It's a bit cold here, but not inside, so that's good. I will comment a few things about the Green Deal, the city's mission. And I'm particularly fond of this activity, actually, because I spend most of my working time on these kinds of bottom-up initiatives, voluntary initiatives, how to sort of gear up action at local level to get our big policy initiatives forward. So it's really that part. So the higher the targets, the more we need local action. That is the conclusion we've drawn in the Commission. We are getting, particularly in the energy transition area, or let's say energy policy area, to a situation that the easy sort of low-hanging fruit has been already picked long time ago. That was like in this process of production of or transport of energy or things like that. And when our targets are getting higher and higher, like climate neutrality by 2050, as you know, this is the EU's legally binding target. So then you have to turn to the demand side. And who is demand? That's us, actually. It's the consumers. It's the retail market. It's companies. So we have to go to the more complex things. And that's why we are also turning to the cities. because reading the Financial Times this morning, I saw an interesting article where they say that basically 1% of the world's surface is delivering like 90% of the value, the GDP or in the world or something like that. It was crazy. And it just shows that 1% is actually in cities. And this, explains the situation. So now, I think if you put that into the context of the Green Deal, which is the European growth strategy, and the way to get to the climate neutrality. So, you can put it into a couple of words. You can say, well, no city is no party. This is an Italian fizzy drink manufacturer. Use this. So basically, you don't get anywhere unless you have the local level strongly involved. And you can put some statistics behind that. We see from my area of energy that around 75% of all legislation that is produced is actually implemented at the local level or regional level. So that's where it is decided. Either it fails or it works. So it's better that we talk directly and we involve directly the cities, and this is where the cities mission comes in. So it's a flagship initiative for the Commission. It goes into, if I would say, the box of bottom-up initiatives that are done together with top-down work of lawmaking. So bottom-up initiatives to involve cities, involve local sector, local stakeholders to get things done and tell us what works, what doesn't, and this kind of work. So that type of activity we are doing since a few years already. It started with a Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy initiative, where you have also 65 cities from Sweden. But now, with the cities mission, we are going a step further. This is really a different thing. Here, we are pulling together, in this case, research funding, which is usually spread around in many, many hundreds of different topics. Research is really important, innovation very important. But if you want to get actually real breakthroughs, you may need to concentrate that money. And that's what we try to do with the city's mission here. So we take out of that big budget, we pour a certain amount of resources, quite a big one, into the cities to get 100 cities climate neutral by 2030. I mean, as you know, that's why we're here. So this is the kind of like an Apollo mission logic that was done in the US in the 1960s. Have to get the man to the moon. I mean, nobody's ever done that. This is impossible. It's like today, a city climate neutral by 2030. I mean, nobody's done that. That's impossible, right? So that's where we are. So we need to put ambitious goal, ambitious resources, and then, of course, the cities as the people to deliver this. And that's where the logic is. So we've put some like 2 billion euros into 5 different missions. A part of that goes into this one, and that's not the end of the game. We're going further. In June this year, we had the selection of the 100 European cities plus then 12 which come from outside Europe. And we were actually doing a bit of guessing in the team that were preparing this call for expression of interest, as we call it. That, how many are going to bid? How many are going to apply? That, we want 100 because we have resources for that, but, are we going to find cities? And we made guesses, and the highest guess was 150, and then the reality was 372 or something like that. So it was like, wow, there's a lot more belief in this goal that maybe we got it pretty much right. So a lot of people, a lot of cities who want to do this. And that was great from our perspective, although then it was a big problem. We thought, what are we going to do with those cities which are not part of the 100? We don't want to lose that momentum. So we want to do everything to keep them on board. And I think this way, what you're doing here, this cooperation between, Vinnova, Formas, Viable Cities, and I'm now forgetting somebody, I'm sorry. But this forms a kind of a dream team, in my view, in making sure that not only the selected ones, but also the other ones who are bidding and have a motivation are brought, are kept on board. That's really an objective that we have in the mission on the whole, but we haven't yet fully cracked the nut how we do it. But you're already doing it, so that's the kind of examples that are great for us, and we want to learn from your experiences then how it's going to work. So that's a thing. And then yes, we have the capacities project, which is setting up these kinds of national platforms, like the one here in Sweden, the other one which is in Spain. Julio is somewhere here. We were discussing it earlier. And these are super, super important. We've seen that when you have something like that, it works. You have to get this kind of, build this multi-level governance from the central to regional, local level, and then things start working. So a word on what the mission is doing now. So we have a platform there, which is offering this kind of a place for a community of practice among cities to develop. So the mission cities talk to each other, share knowledge, find information, and things like that. That's online now. It has started very well, but we want to have, again, your feedback on how to improve it. We have one. Also, the platform is giving city advisors. So each city joining the mission gets an advisor on how to do the planning, the climate city contract planning, the implementation and all that. How to, sort of accompany in this process, because it's not going to be simple. So that's one thing. There is also a so-called pilot cities. We have launched a project of inviting pilot cities to test some solutions and on the way climate neutrality, trying to find those solutions, be it related to governance or finance or others. So it's really the same logic again. Let's do something innovative. So let's do something a bit different because we need to get to that tipping point. That then, after that tipping point, the transition will go faster. And as governance, I mean, make just one example. Another mission city, Leuven in Belgium, has created a very interesting governance structure, which takes all the local stakeholders on board and shares, in a way, the decision-making on energy transition of that city by 2030. And actually, the city has also shared some competence in this. And there's a company, in a way, which is running this. And the great thing about this logic is that if the mayor loses his elections, that company will continue, the transition will continue. So it's a kind of an insurance. So that I'm just giving this as an example. I'm sure you will develop better ones, but this is what you need. So just lastly, so we've asked the cities what they intend to do as mission cities, and we got four priorities: mobility, energy, urban infrastructure, and behavioral change. 4 things which sound very smart to me. So I'm curious to see how that matches with Swedish choices. But this was the overall polling of our mission cities. All of those are connected to energy transitions, which is used as a means to reach those topics. And there are, of course, what mission is going to be working is indeed energy efficiency, alternative fuels, renovation, renewables, and all these things, And we will want to have these innovative solutions. We have to remember the money comes from research budget, so of course innovation. But not only innovation, we have to deploy those by 2030. So that's also super important that this is done with this kind of a practical element in mind. And now lastly, about Swedish cities. What I think that you could bring, and the whole team around, is bring these things from the bioeconomy, for instance, biogases, methane, things like that, waste to energy. That's what is everyday stuff, mainly for the Nordics, but not for cities a bit further down. I think if you don't bring it, then nobody does. So it's kind of what I would just recommend, if I may. And relating to some other, and the last point, you have smart metering in all buildings, including this one. You have it at home. This is smart meter, electricity meter, is something which for us is normal, and for 80% of Europe it's not normal. And this is the little box that allows many things like demand response. If everybody would have had these things at their homes in Europe, we would be in much better position today in this energy crisis caused by Putin attacking Ukraine in a savage manner. So we would have flexibility, and this today, Sweden can do it, Finland can do it, and Italy to some extent. I mean, you know, most of the other countries do not have that technology. So there again, an idea on something that you might want to develop, and you might get an export product out of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have questions for you, so you have to stay.
Okay.
Talking about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, how has that affected the agenda on EU level?
It's affected radically, apart from causing a lot of burnouts, which is, you know, like workload. But so we've been now producing legislation related to the immediate emergency. I'm just not taking the energy aspect because it's even bigger if you go beyond. So 5 or 6 emergency regulations within a few months, plus then about 4 times more legislative work all over on the year. We just went through the stats yesterday. But what is the content is more important. Energy security is now all of a sudden in the center of energy policy. And that's where the Repower EU initiative started from. So how to phase out dependency from Russian fossil fuels, and how to boost renewables, energy efficiency, and this kind of clean transition at the same time. Everything, hydrogen, all kinds of things. And then one big thing, energy savings. So that's for the first time since the 1970s. Energy crisis, people have to actually save energy. And I'm not just doing, you know, meaning renovating energy efficiency, but really cutting down consumption. So we've set up emergency rules on that, including at the European level, can be triggered very fast. Plus the countries are doing these emergency measures, how to do rotating blackouts if we run out of energy in the winter. And the savings aspect is super important, and that's why we launched together with the Cities Mission and the Commandant Mayors the so-called Cities Energy Savings Sprint campaign back in May, where we try to sort of anticipate this at local level. How do we manage the shortage of energy? Because we cannot so quickly replace all these Russian fossil fuels that we had to stop all of a sudden. So that'll take some time. So that's why this aspect is very relevant also for the cities mission, cities to think that, you know, you have to also manage the issue of saving energy and talking to the people, engaging people, making people understand. This is new. It hasn't been done since the 1970s.
How sort of further ahead of? I mean, we've been fast forwarding into the future because of this war, in a sense. I mean, you had a plan, obviously, but how many years have we sort of skipped now? Because we are now have a different conversation about energy and sustainability, which also relates to security. If we hadn't had this war, I mean, we would have been wasting energy like there's no tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, it's difficult to measure that, but what I think this has done is that we have now we have on the table like emergency regulations, which will be entering into force now, or then the Swedish presidency from January will take care of them. So where we increase the energy efficiency targets, for instance, we simplify the permitting of renewable energy installations like windmills, solar panels, things like that. We're doing it like fast forward now. It's going to be in force in January, meaning that these kinds of things will be becoming much simpler. At the same time, we are throwing in more money into the transition. So I think this is accelerating that.
Because there's a conversation I think we were having now that we didn't have before, which basically you talk to European, for example, German cities, and they are now closing down at night. It's dark. They don't have public lighting because it's just stupid, they say. So it's in a way sort of that going back to some kind of common sense or very sort of hands-on. No, we shouldn't do it because that's stupid. We shouldn't waste money. All the stuff that was so difficult to do only a year ago.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, this is it varies from country to country. It's very interesting to see, but you start having some rationalization. I mean, one thing they said, France, in the summer it was hot. Okay. So they like to do air conditioning in the shops. You go shopping, and the doors are open to the street, and you have 40 degrees outside and 20 inside and air conditioners going on. Well, then the French president said, okay, doors closed if you want to keep your air conditioning or heating, that for that matter. Kind of like makes sense. But it was funny, I was at that time in Italy. I thought, well, you guys clearly don't do this. So there it was the old way. And then I thought, well, wait until your energy bill. But I mean, that's not a smart way. But I think these kinds of like common sense things are coming back, and that's, I think, very healthy.
Yeah.
It's also, it saves money as well. It's not just about,
We can agree, common sense is good. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective here.
Thank you.
And you have to put your microphone over there. Yeah. Every year we celebrate people whose work and thoughts have influenced us and moved us closer to making cities climate neutral and more viable. So we call them Viable Cities Champions. And it's time to name and celebrate the champions 2022. So I'm going to hand over to Olga Kordas, the Program Director of Viable Cities.
Yeah, super. Thank you so much. And we know all that we are living in time of crisis. We have a climate crisis, we have war in Ukraine, and with this coming energy crisis and resources, problems with critical minerals, food in many parts of the world. We are working with climate transition and in complex questions. And the question is how to survive. I mean, how to survive working with this kind of complex issues and how to survive in times of crisis. With Viable Cities, we have one solution. So to survive, we celebrate. So we celebrate both small steps and successes and large steps and successes. And now it's time to celebrate. We are very proud that Viable Cities contribute to development of climate neutral cities, not only in Sweden, but also in Europe and globally. And we could not do that without our great partners who are working with us and who is sharing the same mission with us. So today I'm very proud to announce 2 Viable Cities champions of 2022. The first champion is Mrs. Teresa Ribeira Rodriguez. She is the 3rd Vice President of the government of Spain, and this is a motivation. For your pioneering efforts in developing a national platform to implement our common EU city missions and signing a Spanish climate city contract, and for engaging citizens, businesses, academia, and civil society in this work, as well as acting as an international forerunners in accelerating the transition to climate neutral and sustainable cities by 2030. Yes, and for the first time in our history, we have Viable Cities champion, not a person, but organization, and it's UN Habitat. So the motivation for UN Habitat is for the global leadership of UN Habitat in advancing, accelerating transition to climate transition of cities to become climate neutral with a view to governance innovation and citizen-centric approaches, not least connecting to our common effort in climate smart city challenge. So UN Habitat.
And we're now going to hear from Her Excellency Teresa Ribeira Rodriguez, who is the Minister of the Ecological Transition of Spain and Vice President of the Government, and then Her Excellency Mahmoud Sharif, Executive Director of UN Habitat.
I would like first of all to thank for this recognition as Viable City Champion 2022, an award that is deserved by the different cities and mayors and the civil society willing to be part of the solutions in the main challenges that we have ahead of us. I would also like to stress my deepest congratulations to all these 23 Swedish cities that are signing their contract for being much more greener, much more viable in 2030. Mayors are a big part of the solution. We may count on healthy, greener cities, we may count on something that could provide much more resilience in the city space towards climate change effects, that could combat pollution, that could provide a much more healthy, social-friendly space. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions, combating pollution, ensuring a healthy city that breathes clean air, facilitating a greener space in our cities is something that cannot be achieved without the strong commitment of the mayors. But mayors know that. Mayors feel committed and have the political energy to do so, and citizens do appreciate this effort. They increasingly demand this type of response by the local authorities. In the case of Spain, Madrid, Barcelona, Sevilla, Valencia, Zaragoza, Vitoria have already worked for being part of these mission cities at the European level. But not only them. Even in this context, Valencia has won the award of being the Green City 2024. But there are lots of other mid-size or small-size cities that want to be part of this solution and are working hard to ensure that this is going to happen. This counts on a platform that we have organized at the national level, where the different academia sectors, the different civil society representatives, the different local authorities can exchange and improve the ways they proceed, so to ensure that cities are greener, healthier and much more balanced. This has get great success and support coming from the local level. And this is part of the solution that we want to establish and to promote, because the most important thing when dealing with these challenges is to ensure that people do ask, do appreciate and do respond to these calls. They take this as something that is part of their ownership, is part of the solution they want to promote. This is the case in many cities in the world, but we want to be proud of this contribution coming from each of our countries. So congratulations to all these Swedish cities that do sign their contract today, and be sure that here in Spain we have lots of other cities that want to join this initiative.
Excellencies, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of UN Habitat, the UN Programme for Sustainable Cities and Human Settlements, I would like to extend my gratitude and appreciation for receiving the Viable Cities Champion Awards. At Stockholm Plus 50 event earlier this year, I said that both the natural and built environments need to be regarded as a single ecosystem. I advocated for the idea of biodiverse cities. If we want to leave the planet a better place for future generations, we cannot shy away from the uncomfortable truth that our lifestyles and the way we consume resources is unsustainable. The climate crisis is already here, with extreme weather events, forest fires, and natural disasters affecting many parts of the world. With 70 to 80% of all carbon emissions generated in urban areas, the battle for the survival of humanity will be won or lost in our cities. As a former mayor, I can tell you that local governments can help reduce carbon emissions. They have tremendous influence with their residents who need to radically change the way we live and consume to reduce our overall carbon footprints. Mayors mobilize their citizens every day to help improve the city's resilience and adaptability to climate-related disasters and negative effects. But they cannot do it alone. We need national governments to work together with local governments and communities to ensure resources reach the most vulnerable. Innovation and digitalization will be crucial, of course, but they are merely tools. A smart city is also a city of smart people. Cities and local governments need to invest in renewable energy generations, electric mobility, smart grids, shared mobility services, and predictive analytics. But they also need to start investing in better public transport, green public spaces, densification, planning for non-motorized transport, energy efficiency in buildings, and overall resilient planning. Our work together in Sweden is important as the rest of the world look to us for urban solutions. I believe the initiative such as the City Climate Contract can play an important role in helping cities transition towards climate neutrality. In this case, we are promoting a social contract that ensures that no one and no place is left behind. Let us not look away from the inconvenient truth that not all cities are equal. Please continue to help UN Habitat assist cities across the world to invest in renewable energy generations, sustainable mobility solutions, and climate adaptation strategies. The Climate Smart Cities Challenge, which is being implemented in collaboration with Viable Cities, have shown the value of challenge-driven innovation in matching cities' climate challenges with innovative solutions from the private sector. We must now help developing countries implement such policies and scale up positive action on the ground. I'm truly grateful for the recognition of UN Habitat's work by Viable Cities. I look forward to continue working with you to achieve our global goal of climate neutral cities. We have only one planet, and we must ensure that no one and no place is left behind in our urbanizing world. Thank you.
And now to receive the award on behalf of Teresa Ribera Rodriguez, it's my pleasure to welcome Cristina Latorre, Ambassador for the Kingdom of Spain to Sweden.
I'm so happy. Thank you so much. I thank you very much. In behalf of the Vice President, I really have very few words to add to what Vice President just has said. And first of all, 4 things, very short. First, to congratulate the initiative because it's a fantastic idea, the join together innovation and local and regional and cities. No, I think that's really fantastic, and I think through innovation is the only way that you can really get these climate objectives for 2030. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. But through innovation, I think you can. Second, I would like to underline the commitment, as you know, of the Spanish cities to climate neutrality. We have already some part of them that are 7 cities that have been selected by the Commission to be part of this climate neutral and smart cities mission 2013, but there are some others that are fighting to get this, so we keep on working. And of course, in that fight, we have the support of the Spanish government, which is really engaged, and through Vice President Rivera, that she's a personal friend too, and I think that you really have done a very good choice because she's a fantastic person, very smart and very engaged in this fight. So congratulations to the initiative and to all of you. Thank you.
Two years ago, history was made when the first Swedish contract was signed by 9 Swedish city mayors and the director general from 4 government agencies. And it's already, as we've heard, cascading on a local level as well as on a European level. The City Climate Contract is an agreement between cities, government agencies and viable cities in which all parties commit to make concrete contributions to speed up the climate transition. The contract has one part is the same, the commitments and implementation of the government agencies and viable cities. And the other part of the contract related to cities looks different, since they've been adapted to the various circumstances. Our cities, they vary in size, they don't have the geography, industry or political governments. Several also added annexes to the contract, which more detailed information on how they are working with climate transition. So important to remember, the Climate City Contract is a long-term process to ensure cooperation between cities on a national level. And since there's no one clear path forward, we need to test our ways and reflect and learn from our actions and what we do and what we don't do and our mistakes. And the process of the Climate City Contract will develop over time. So it will be revised every year around this time with different government levels. And so today, 2 years later, we are working with 23 Swedish cities and 6 government agencies to accelerate the climate transition. An additional government agency joined this year, the Environmental Protection Agency, Naturvårdsverket. Hej på er. We are now at the point where we will sign a revised and more ambitious contract than last year. So this is where the action happens. So welcome on stage, dear mayors and director generals. You're going to sign and then we're going to have a photo shoot. So grab your pens and start signing if you receive one of these plates. Vi står här tror jag, och signerar. There will be people signing behind you as well, so you shouldn't block them. We'll also have the photographer here. Can we get the video going with the mayors in behind? There you go. So these are your friends and colleagues. You cannot, so you have to part here. Go on the side here. We will then take a picture of all of you. Let's see. Ni står jättebra, jag byter svenska. Jättebra. Vi signerar och håller upp. Everyone who signs can get a picture to send home to their mothers. So that's the sort of main reason why you're signing today. There we go. We'll see if our photographer is happy. Our photographer is here. You look at him and you say "Mamma," and then everyone will see look like you're smiling. Bra. And then we're going to have you all like this family photo because we are in the EU, but I need to have family photos to have closure. So Olga will be in the middle. And then the rest of you will gather around her. Cici as well. So let's gather everyone who signed. We will have a photo of you. There's no particular order. Toppen. Nej, det vill jag inte. Nej. Regeln är, har man inte signerat så man inte vara med. Det här är sånt ni gör på jobbet varje dag, så jag fattar. So, let's see. Have someone sitting here. Bra. Are you seeing everyone? Fantastiskt. Det liknar klass 9A. Perfekt. You're happy? Thank you so much. You can now return to your seats. Strålande. All right. I think we're ready to continue. For those of you who remember last year, things went like 1,000 times faster than last year. Last year was basically hurdling cats. It was a disaster. It was lovely. And I should point out that none of this paperwork matters if we don't work together and take responsibility for acting here and now. So I'm now going to talk to mayors and representatives from cities that are part of viable cities to talk to them what insights and initiatives they are ready to share with each other and the rest of Europe. And we're going to do this by calling them by themes and in groups. And because they are to feel comfortable on stage, I will then bring a table to them. Because nothing seems to be comforting as leaning on a table. So, first up are a couple of cities that are pioneering work in enhancing the quality of life for citizens in various ways. So I'm going to be joined on stage by Jens Gille, Head of Climate Transition, City of Helsingborg, Mikael Sanfridsson, Mayor of Linköping. You can come. Hans Lindberg, Mayor of Umeå, and Niklas Doarsson, Mayor of Östersund. Here we are. Trying to fit around the table. You can even be here.
Maybe.
So I'm going to ask you sort of a question each. So how the transition to climate neutral cities 2030 enhance the quality of life of citizens in your city, and what's sort of the steps ahead? So Mr. Gille, let me start with you. What's the most important thing you do to improve quality of life in Helsingborg going forward?
Well, I think I actually got the task late yesterday, so I'm going to stick to a manuscript in this case. It's usually recommendable. The city ambition for sustainable development is for all residents to experience the high quality of life, but with a low environmental impact, so that people and business reach the full potential in long-term sustainable growth, and so that future generations can experience good quality of life. Since climate mitigation is heavily dependent on urban action, we need to accelerate our green transformation. Helsingborg is taking a holistic approach to working with climate neutrality, highlighting indispensable synergies such as greener city, cleaner air, and less congestion and noise to the citizens.
Sounds all like good ideas. Mr. Sanfridsson, what's the most important thing you do in Linköping to increase quality of life?
Well, we have very recently adopted a new climate and energy program with climate goals for the future. Now we are focusing on updating our climate action plan that will define how we can achieve our goals. And the work is done in close collaboration with the academia, the business sector, and together with the civil society and the citizens. So one new aspect integrated in this process is about how climate transition will occur in a just and equality way, with the aim to enhance quality of life. To understand the impact of the different climate actions, we must take into consideration different groups' interests and situation. Therefore, we develop a cross-group focusing on social sustainability. The aim is to build knowledge and awareness about the social implications of climate action when we lay out our roadmap.
Also sounds great. Mr. Lindberg in Umeå, you've been working with for quite some long using quality of life for your citizens as a center point in your work. What are you doing going forward?
We need the people in Umeå to help us to be more sustainable. It's not for only few citizens. We need all the citizens to discuss with us how to be more sustainable. We have to invest in building the social capital, because the people must know and they want to change at the same time. So therefore we have to have a lot of discussions everywhere with the people in Umeå. So therefore the social sustainability is very important to be more climate positive in Umeå.
Mr. Dawson, in Östersund, what's the important thing happening there in the future?
For me, to be the mayor of a city far north, it's 600 kilometers north of Stockholm. This is really, really crucial for us. We live close to the nature. Our motto is we are the snow city, the winter city, and our logo is a snow heart. So we need the snow, we need it to be cold. We got these big events. We have the Biathlon World Cup as one example. It's a very big part of our identity to be the winter city. And we got obviously the tourism and the industry around the tourism to continue come to us. So to stop the global warming is crucial for our way of live. And it's existential for us to be a part of the viable cities and to stop global warming. So we are very committed to be a part of this work and looking forward to increase in our work.
Thank you so much for committing and being a part of this. Big applause. And that was the cities of Helsingborg, Linköping, Umeå, and Östersund. And the next theme we have is competitiveness, and we have a couple of cities who have been thinking hard on how to define and redefine that for decades to come. And I'm now joined on stage by Jimmy Jansson, Mayor of Eskilstuna, Eva Ullberg, Mayor of Järfälla, Malin Olsson Lundqvist, Member of the Municipality Council in Mariestad, och Salomon Arbetsberg, Head of Climate Transition in Borlänge. So, Mr. Johnson, I'll sort of start with you. How will climate contracts increase competitiveness in Eskilstuna?
Well, I think you've heard about that old Swedish song from the 1970s, the state and the capital. You've heard it, yeah? We're trying to do that in a more modern and a better version in Eskilstuna, where the municipality and the companies are sitting in the same boat. And the great thing is that we don't have to take the oars anymore from the municipality side. Actually, we have difficulties to keep up with the companies. They are very eager to take the oars and row. We have about 50 companies already, and it has been easy for us to help us and do the hard work when it comes to transition. And that's not because they are kind, of course, because they realize that it's about survival. They are so eager to do this. I guess you've heard about all the new companies which like to establish in Eskilstuna. You've heard about that, right? You can ask any of them, and they will have these kind of questions on the top of their mind all the time. It's about survival, and they want to contribute to a better society. It's so clear now when something has happened during the last maybe 5 or 10 years. It's such a power in that. So it's about survival.
That's lovely to hear. Mrs. Ullberg, what about you in Järfälla?
I will start to say that this year, Järfälla become the Swedish 4th best environmental municipality. Okay, and the best in Stockholm region.
Yep.
However, our carbon dioxide budget shows that we must reduce our emissions with at least 12%, okay, per year, meaning that we must work harder and keep the budget. We will take the lead for growth and sustainability development, and we will work together with builders and local companies, because that's the key to reach our goal of climate neutrality in 2030. We are building a sustainable modern city in Barkarby, and we are delivering 1,000 new home and working places in collaboration with different constructors. Together with companies with high sustainability ambitions, we keep testing. We keep testing new ways to reduce our climate impact, and we work together to constantly learn from each other. Is it working? Yes?
Yes.
By placing high demands on climate, sustainability and greenery when allocation land in Järfälla, we promote the constructors who want to contribute to the goal to the climate neutrality. Our next step is to accelerate the transitions to renewable local energy production, to facilitating the establishment of solar cells, and to continue the cooperation and development of a climate neutral Järfälla together with the business actors.
Excellent. Everything seems to be happening in Järfälla, obviously. Mr. Lundqvist, how is climate contract helping increase in competitiveness in Mariestad?
Can you hear me? Does it work?
Yes.
It works really loud. That's good.
Well.
Thank you. In Mariestad, we started the journey in 2014 or 15 with this industrial renewal. And we started that to work together with the companies in Mariestad and asking them how do they see the way forward to industrial renewal in Mariestad. And we got a good, very much good input, and we started our journey with the brand Electro Village when we started to make focus on hydrogen and producing hydrogen. And in that way, and then we started to marketing Mariestad and the things that we do in Mariestad outside Mariestad. We get other to talk about us instead of we. Is it working now?
Yep.
Oh, good. So in that process, in making Mariestad a test and demo site for industrial renewal, we kind of make a buzz about it. So now actually we are there that you talked also about making the companies come to us and want to be a part of the transition, the green transition. So I think that we are in a good place right now where we are created a demand. And now we see many ways forward. We have a lot of spin-offs, for example, the hydrogen products. And also we think that maybe we're going to engage in the transition for the agricultural sector. Could be a way forward now. There are a lot of spin-offs from the hydrogen project, of course.
So Mariestad is where everything seemed to be cooking as well. Mr. Abresbar, you've been initiated a climate contract with several large companies in Borlänge. How is that contract helping them increase their competitiveness?
When we ask them, I mean, we now have a queue of companies who want to join. And when we ask them why, and we listen to them, they say that for the first thing, I agree with Jimmy, the answer is that it's a matter of survival. Yep. But another thing is that they want to invest in the place, in the city, to make it more attractive, more sustainable, green, climate neutral, and so on. To be competitive in terms of attracting talents, workers, employees.
Making Borlänge great again.
Yes, that's the answer that we get. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing what you're doing in your city. Thank you, Eskilstuna, Järfälla, Mariestad, and Borlänge. The next theme is energy, and we have a lot of cities who are keen to talk about their work on that, which seems fitting for a year like this, when energy is high on the agenda. But we can't have everyone on stage, obviously, so let's divide them into a few groups. First up, Tom Andersson, Head of Climate Council, City of Borås. Per-Åke Fredriksson, Member of Municipality Council, City of Gävle. Carl Mossfeldt, Head of Climate Transition, Göteborg. Och Anna Tore, Member of the Municipality Council in Kalmar. Hello.
Hi.
Mr. Andersson, how is Borås working with energy transition as part of the Mission Climate Neutral City 2030? What are the steps ahead?
Yeah, I have a very long list and very little time, so I'll cut it down. It's really about using less energy and producing more energy. And as a municipality with our own energy company, we can do a lot more in producing energy. And at the same time, we have to use our buildings, and we have to use it in both ways. We have to spend less energy and use solar to produce energy with our buildings. And it's not enough that the municipality does. The municipality is only 1% of the carbon footprint of the municipality. We have to engage companies and the citizens to also take these steps. And we also have to be innovative and look at energy storage. with the batteries, flow batteries, hydrogen, and we have to do this at the same time as we use every available technology to use less energy. And I think the energy price right now makes it economical to do these investments faster than before.
And also, it's always a good idea to own an energy company.
It's very good for a municipality to own its own energy company.
We have more cities actually working on that as well. Mr. Fredriksson, what energy issues are you working with Gävle?
Well, the main challenge for Gävle is that the emissions from transportation sector is the biggest. It's 70% of all the emissions we have. So one way we are working with it is actually with our port of Gävle. We have an ambitious plan for optimizing port cluster, which means that the port and the cluster organizations works together to reach the Paris Agreement, which also includes all the harbor activity, creating conditions for fossil-free transportation to and from the harbor, on land and on water, and energy optimizing, electrification, and renewable energy production and storage covered by the plan in the harbor. So this is one way for us to lower our transport sector emissions.
Mr. Mossfeldt, how are you planning to increase the speed of transition in Göteborg? I know you've been moving fast, but can you increase that even further?
So the two dimensions of the transition that we look at is the electrification agenda on the one hand, where we are fortunate to work with industrial players at a national and global level, and that race is going fast and it's encouraging, and it's turning Gothenburg into a world-class center for mobility and electrification, and it's an indication of how the green transition can be a creating engine for jobs and growth, and that's a good story. The other part of the transition is the older systems, we call it that, which is the heating system, the fuel production systems in Sweden, where we have the largest port in Scandinavia. We have the production of 10 million tons of fossil fuels, a production engine that's linked into the heating system, and thus the residential sector. That's a different set of challenges, but we believe that we are moving fast on that as well. And of course, that's where the carbon emissions are. And the key issue we see here is that it's important that we don't face too much focus on the electrification agenda, the sort of sexy part of the transition, but also focus on the harder, older systems that also need to be transitioned. The key challenge that I think we face in both these sectors is that we as a municipality, basically responsible for fairly core tasks in the welfare service, are now also faced with responsibilities of a national importance. Be that a global innovation system, Gothenburg is home to 30% of FoU R&D money in Sweden, or a national logistics system or fuel production system. Here we see a gap between the traditional municipal responsibilities and tools and other entities, be that regional, national, EU levels. And this is where I think the climate contract needs to come in and close those gaps. We have done our part in creating a climate transition office, which I lead, and we now need to find those interfaces with the national level that allows us to go beyond the municipal actions into international and global actions, be that around energy production, wind farms, wind islands, whatever that is, or be that in the reforming of the transportation and fuel production systems, where again, actions beyond the municipal level are absolutely key.
Sounds wonderful, and I think that's great to have all the world basically in the room at the same time. Mr. Tore, what's happening in Kalmar then? What are you working on?
Yeah, for one thing, we are situated on the sunny side, I'm sorry, of Sweden, by the coast.
Rain.
Yeah. It's hard to make energy from rain, but from the sun you can do that. And there's a lot of wind by the coast, and we're also situated just next to the big, deep forests in Småland. So we have all the opportunities to produce a lot of energy from fossil-free energy. Yesterday, actually, we had this great sun park who is co-owned. They opened this shares. People could buy shares and stocks from the sun parks. And by the morning, when this VD went back to work, all the parts were sold out. So it's quite a lot of interest in, of course, in fossil-free energy. And besides this wind and sun and the forest, we also have one more resource that's really, really good for us for renewable energy. And that's actually bullshit. And I don't mean bullshit, I mean bullshit.
You mean literally bullshit, yes. We can't say, we're not in the US, it will not censor us. We can say bullshit how much we want.
Yeah, we have a lot of animals in Kalmar, and all the manure, if we collect all that, there will be enough to supply all our cars and the tourist cars. And there's a lot of things cooking there with the farmers, gathering and building great power plants from biogas.
So you aim to be the bullshit capital of Småland. Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us. Borås, Gävle, Göteborg and Kalmar. Let's bring another group to discuss this, continue this discussion on energy. So I say welcome to Torbjörn Nilsson, Chairman of the Environmental Committee in the Municipality Council of Karlstad, Kalia Palm, Mayor of Kristianstad, och Anders Almgren, Mayor of Lund. I'm just getting your mics to work. Everything will be fine.
We'll see.
Perfect. There we are. All of you, welcome. I'll start with you, Mr. Nilsson. Share a little what's happening in Karlstad.
Well, as a municipality in Sweden, we have several different roles that give opportunities to promote renewable energy, energy efficiency, and climate neutrality. Some important roles for the municipality are supplying energy, buying energy, managing municipal property, physical planning, traffic systems managing, and giving advice to individuals and companies on how to save energy. But I will focus on the first two of these roles, supplying energy and buying energy. As an energy supplier, we made several large investments to increase production of fossil-free energy. Together with a neighboring municipality, Hammarö, we built 5 wind turbines in Lake Vänern, which started to generate electricity in 2009. 10 years later, the wind turbines were sold to the French company Innovent. In periods, there have been technical problems with the turbines, but they produced lots of clean, renewable energy. Also in 2009, we inaugurated the production of biogas at our municipal water treatment plant. Here, gas emitted from wastewater is refined to be used as vehicle fuel, for instance, in the buses in our town. But our biggest investment in renewable energy production so far has been the building of a cogeneration plant where both district heating and electricity are produced through combustion of biofuels. This was started in 2014 and enabled us to abolish fossil fuels in our district heating. Then that's the producer or supplier part. As a buyer of energy, we only buy electricity from renewable energy sources. And when new office buildings are built, we require them to have building standard silver, which includes requirements for energy efficiency. And most of our official cars in the municipality, they run on electricity or biofuel. And finally, when it comes to steps ahead, one important thing is our plan for producing hydrogen, integrated with heat and electricity production at our cogeneration plant. We think that when the whole society switches from fossil fuels to renewable energy, hydrogen will become increasingly important, both as vehicle fuel and as a way of storing energy. And we hope that our plan is that this production of hydrogen will start in 2025.
Love that energy you have when you're talking about energy. Mrs. Palm, how is Kristianstad working with energy transition as part of your mission climate, the mission climate due to City 2030? What are the steps you're taking?
The steps we have been taking is working very hard on our biogas facilities. They have helped us in the importance of reduce the CO2 emissions in our municipality. And the same goes for using, sorry, I lost the words. We have district heating also in the municipality, and in that way we make use of the biogas. And that's very useful for us, as in Kalmar, I think it was, because we also have a lot of productions in pigs. We have many pigs. I think we are the most tightest municipality with pigs in Sweden.
Most pig-intense
most
town.
pigs-intense town. Yeah.
What a slogan! What
So
a
we
slogan.
can make good use of the manure from them. We also have industries that make use of the manure and in the biogas.
Are there some things that you find more challenging, little more hard to do, or is everything just steaming ahead?
No, it isn't. Sorry. For instance, the solar panel systems, we would like to have make more use on the ground, but in the decrease of the worrying times with the war, we are supposed to make more food to our people. So maybe we can make more use of the buildings in the cities to put solar panels on them.
Mr. Almgren, you're also from Lund, representing that, and so how are you planning to increase the speed of transition in your city?
Is this one? Oh, I'll try this one.
That's just a prank liner,
Yeah. You tried to shut us down, but you couldn't. No, but a lot of my colleagues already mentioned, a lot of these examples how I think that most of us 20 plus cities work within the energy field. We share a lot of them. So I will just mention a few that's actually more or less unique that we do. We are a national testbed for electric roads, together with some of the national agencies which are actually represented here today. Actually a way of charging your electric car or vehicle while you're driving, and without have to charge it at home, or you can actually add the charge while you're driving. And then it has been more or less international renowned also, and had a lot of delegations abroad for this. This could become a Swedish export success. And we also focus on, now we have constructed the world's largest low temperature district heating grid. That is that we take the residual energy from different products. In our case, from science facilities, but in your cases, it can be for the industries. And that hasn't really been possible before. But now we have part of the city with a district heating grid with just 65 degrees centigrade, and that's actually makes it much cheaper. Lower heat losses, and it could actually also turn into a Scandinavian export success, because as you know, most cities in Europe, they don't even know about district heating. And to construct district heating by the old way is really expensive, and it could be hard to do. But in the way we are using it in a whole new city district within a couple of years, more than 40,000 inhabitants, it could also turn into a success that not only for Lund, but for other cities and to be actually around the globe. So I think that's really interesting.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing what you've done, Karlstad, Kristianstad and Lund. Cold district heating, it's fun what the kids turn up these days. I also think it's fun to hear all these cities, they're sort of saying, they were talking on the same topic, but saying different things, and also the same things in a weird way, which is also fun. I was a little bit anxious they said exactly the same thing all the time, but they're not. And for those of you keeping track, yes, I call the cities according to the Swedish alphabet. So let's bring up another group to discuss energy, with a quartet consisting of Evelina Falsom-Skellefteå. No, she's not here. She's there. She is online. Excellent. Karin Vangård, Mayor of Stockholm, Pernilla Tornéus, Mayor of Växjö, and John Jonasson, Mayor of Örebro. So we'll try to make this work while not shading Evelina, but she's 4 times bigger than you, so I think it will work probably. Let's start with you, Mr. Falson. Share a little what's happening in Skellefteå.
Well, thank you for that I could join you from Skellefteå. The plane was cancelled because of the snowfall. Well, in Skellefteå we have a long tradition of working with energy, but that's so much more than just the production when you're talking about the energy. we need to talk about how can we handle the energy smarter in our society. So we have ideas to connect the buildings and the districts to each other so that surplus energy from one place can supply another. For one example, we have Sara Kulturhus that has solar panels, batteries, heating pumps, and using the electric and water and the district heating. But we also have the ambition to create a competence center for energy and electrification, Arctic Center of Energy, ACE, because we understand that we have to look forward in the future to make room for more resources of research and development for electrification over our society. And maybe can we make our campus an area with an energy positive district?
Thank you so much. Ms. Vangård, how is Stockholm working with energy transition as a part of this mission Climate Neutral Cities 2030? What steps are you taking?
Yeah, we take a lot of steps because Stockholm works hard on energy transition as a part of the work to reach a climate positive city by 2030. And to reach the goal, we need to work hard together with inhabitants, business partners, and academia to reduce emissions and increase carbon capture and storage. The energy transition is a core in the climate transition in Stockholm. We have come a long way to a fossil fuel-free Stockholm in the heating sector, with a change from fossil fuels to renewable fuels. The remaining fossil fuels are mainly in the form of fossil plastics that ends up in the waste incineration. To reduce these emissions, we are now building sorting facilities that sort out the remaining plastics. We also work to reduce plastics upstream together with large plastic users. Road transportation is the largest sector. It stands for 40% of the total greenhouse gas emission in Stockholm, and we need to reduce this through electrification, increased use of biofuels, and reduced traffic. The electrification of transports is changing faster than expected in Stockholm. It's a lot hard work to do, and we are not satisfied until the work is done. And there is currently a limit on how much electricity that can be fed into Stockholm. This grid capacity is connected to how we can reach our climate goals. We work to reduce power peaks, reduce energy consumption, and increase local energy production. But the goal is clear. We need to work hard to find a climate positive city of Stockholm by 2030.
Moving on to Växjö, Mr. Tornéus, ever since you were named the European Green Capital all those years ago, a lot of cities been looking at you and what are you doing? So how you plan to increase the speed of transition in Växjö?
Yes, Växjö started its transition like 40 years ago, or 1980, I think. So we have all district heating, all electricity, and vehicle fuel that is produced locally already comes from renewable energy. So we have to keep up our high ambition to do something more. And for things that we do, we continue to build energy efficient wooden buildings. We have done that for many years, and we continue that. When we renovate existing buildings, we want to make sure that they use less energy, and especially to reduce the use of electricity. And we also increase the local electricity production, such as solar energy, wind energy, and bioenergy. And we also innovate work on new production of vehicle fuel, such as biojet for airplanes. So by combining all these steps, we will continue the energy transition for a climate-neutral Växjö, and we will make sure that the locally produced renewable energy lasts for more people and more purposes.
Lovely. Mr. Johansson, what's happening in Örebro?
A lot of things. We are already 100% climate neutral, which is very good, and that is in our entire corporation. And we want to use more of the wins and the gains by that. This year, when the energy prices have been much higher, we have been able to reduce our costs in the municipality. So we have been able to afford more teachers than higher energy bills, which of course has been very good this year. We have one unique project, which is Tamarinden. I stood here 1 year ago and talked about that. It's a housing district where we both produce our own energy, we store it, and then we distribute it between the different houses. So for instance, when the energy on the main grid needs to be shut off, we have energy in the district. So we store it in batteries, and when it's done, it will be able to, as Karin said, when we have peaks, we can use the energy we have stored. And that will, of course, not only decrease the energy usage, but also the costs. So we want to, when Tamarinden is finished, we want to use that solution to make Örebro the first smart city, and use that solution in our entire city. So that will be very good when it's done.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Skellefteå, Stockholm, Växjö, and Örebro. And as you know, it's a lat letter in Swedish. So let's also give a big thanks to all these Swedish mayors who are making the effort to present what they're doing for climate neutral and climate neutral future in English. They are very keen to share experience beyond the borders, and English, as some of you already know, is not our tongue here in Swedish. So big applause again for them for pulling that off. Let's now look ahead from a national perspective, and I've been joined by Director General from government agencies. And I'm going to start with the first two. They're going to get the mics, Robert Andrén and Darja Isaksson. Robert, as is a familiar face here, is the Director General at the Swedish Energy Agency, and Darja Isaksson is Director General at Vinnova, the Swedish Innovation Agency. So I'll start with you two, and I'll get the others later on. Your agencies have been part of this for the past 5 years, so I'm just going to have you reflect on the work so far. Mr. Isaksson, from your perspective, what's the most important going forward?
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. It's been a great journey so far. You have a very straightforward question. Can I elaborate a little bit before?
Absolutely.
So we heard how the EU sees the missions for sustainable cities as a flagship. And I would say that it's quite clear from everyone here that so do we in Sweden. I'm also very, very happy about the international outlook and absolute close collaboration already from the beginning, embodied here by our friends from Spain and UN Habitat. That provides opportunities to address global challenges together as a global community from the start. So I think this is at the core of the effort here. One of the things that is really essential is what Cecilia Södergård, your chairman, said from the beginning. We're here to celebrate action. Actions guided by science. So there are scientific targets to be met in terms of climate emissions, in terms of biodiversity, in terms of how we use land, water, etc. And what we're seeing here is that mayors from the local perspective are working very bravely and systematically with setting science-based targets, working across their own silos to really address it. And now we have these climate contracts, and they're doing it in partnerships with companies that also know that this is the key to competitiveness, the key to attractiveness, the key to prosperity. And I would say that that really embodies a lot of what we're seeing happening in Sweden right now. So the climate contracts then, that I'm very happy about, and actually the background story is that we are funding this program, and then the program comes back to us at the national level and says, here, you need to commit to action. And that's the key principle. So to answer your question, I would say moving forward, having these contracts where the cities have their even climate investment plans, their priorities set, and that we have signed contracts where we commit to support them with our regulatory mandates, with our funding opportunities, etc. So the next step moving forward, doing this in the next step of even taking it further in terms of process, like our joint work and saying, but what we need to do is not only guide the targets by science, guide our ways of working by science, and here is science on what does it take to drive a societal transformation. It takes partnerships and it takes portfolios of activities, and we can only build these portfolios together from the local, regional, national, international perspectives across these silos. So that's what we're started, and I look forward for the next steps in that.
And thank you so much for looking backward, for looking forward. I think that's a good point. Mr. Andrén, what's your reflections?
Thank you, and I can start by just echoing what Daria said, of course. So I will make a personal reflection instead. I'm a sports guy. I've been playing in various teams in various sports for almost 5 decades. That's horrible to think about. I've been playing in successful teams, and I have to admit some unsuccessful teams, but there are not so many. 3 things they have in common, successful teams. 1, they have a common goal that they want to achieve. 2, every player is working her or his socks off to be a part of reaching that goal. And thirdly, and let's not forget that, every player is trying very hard to make the team players become successful and better players as well. And why am I saying this? Because what we are doing here is a question of teamwork. And if we are to become a successful team, we need to become a team and not just a group of individual entities. And a true team requires confidence and trust to each other. And I'm convinced that we can achieve that as well in order to achieve our goals. And I can also assure you that I, my colleagues here, and the whole of the Swedish Energy Agency are committed to be reliable. And I'm convinced that the Secretariat for Viable Cities are quite an able and stable coach to lean on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. And we're going to say bye-bye to you and then bring on the remaining 4. We have Johan Kuylenstierna, Director General at Formas, a government research council for sustainable development. Tim Brooks, representing the Swedish Agency for Economic and Regional Growth. Roberto Maurana, Director General at the Swedish Transport Administration. And Björn Risinger, Director General at the Environment and Protection Agency, Naturvårdsverket. That agency is also the latest addition to this roster of government agencies. So we say especially hello to you, Björn. So let's start with you then. What you see is the most important reason for your agency to join this effort?
Well, let me start with one comment in Swedish. Äntligen! Finally! We have been kind of hang around versus the Viable Cities during a number of years, and a small bird whispered a few weeks before midsummer there might be an invitation to the Viable Cities, and it came just a few weeks ago. So after short considerations, we decided, yes, we will of course be a part of the Viable Cities, as we have a lot of important tasks for the Swedish government when it comes to climate policy measures and so on. So we are really keen to make part of this team and to help the municipalities in this work.
In what way is your government agency currently supporting this acceleration? I mean, you obviously have a ton of data that most of us rely on, but otherwise, what are you doing?
Well, in the climate field, there are lots of different issues. We are doing the ETS regulations, and we are doing the climate reporting and the climate local climate investment grants. We issued yesterday 80 new decisions on local climate investment grants. So, well, we have to start working, actually, and we will work a lot in close collaboration with all the other government agencies supporting the Viable Cities.
Mr. Kuylenstierna, in what way is your agency currently supporting the acceleration to this local climate transition?
Well, thank you for inviting me here. And one of the things we are doing is collaborating with our partners, of course, in terms of research with Vinnova and the Energy Agency. And we were part of that core group. I would like to say also, I mean, Daria, you started with referring to Cecilia Sissi, accelerating or celebrating action. I think what is interesting this week is that we are celebrating both science in terms of the Nobel Week and celebrating action as well. And I think that this is exactly what our agency, together with the other agencies, can do. It's connecting the whole scientific foundation, the innovation force that you have in society, with the actions that municipalities and other actors are really focusing on right now. What I think is critical for us as an agency is, of course, not to see this as a separate initiative, just one of our initiatives. It's about our entire portfolio. What I think is really interesting is, of course, that we have a number of tools like this strategic investment or innovation programs. This is one example of it. But if we look at totality, if we look at all our different tools and all the resources we have to make sure that we work with them as a portfolio to really support exactly these kinds of actions. And this is what we can do best, I think, and this is how we can promote also innovation, science, and actions at the local level, as this is all about.
Mr. Brooks, I mean, you, as your agency, you also have a specific focus on the regional growth. How is the climate contracts important from that perspective?
Yeah, they're very important. I mean, we look at the regional and economic growth in Sweden, and our major, for a start, green growth is really at the centre of our agency at the moment, and a priority both from the government and within our work. So it's an important part, and this is an important part of the green growth, as many have or green transition, as many have said. We have three major offers that we work on. We work on financing, knowledge, and networks. On the financing front, the Commission recently, just a couple of weeks ago, approved the National Regional Development Programme, which includes 1.6 billion, about 1.6 billion total investments into sustainable urban development in Sweden. And this is a whole new feature of these programs, which has come in with this programming phase. So there's a lot of financing that we'll be working with partners to support this sort of initiative. On the knowledge, we have a lot of knowledge on regional development, on business development, and we have a lot of networks within this area which we hope to contribute into the Viable Cities programme. And then the importance of knowledge and networks has been shown today. It's the whole point. We learn from each other, we learn about new ideas, we know how to invest, what to invest in, what works, what doesn't work, and that's an important part of our concept. So we have more financing on the go, and we're going to continue developing knowledge and networks, and this is a very important vehicle for us to do so.
Mr. Majorana, you're the Director General of the Swedish Transport Administration. What do you see the greatest potential going forward to develop the support from your agency to accelerate climate, sort of the transition to climate?
Well, I must say there are many things. First of all, I'd like to say that we would like to be part of this teamwork. That's very important for us, and as a member of this group, I'm very proud that we can be here. And of course, planning of the transport system, our core assignment and our contribution within the transport sector are the areas where we can actually make a difference. When it comes to planning of the transport system, we are in cooperation, we have a dialogue, and we make agreements with the municipalities all around Sweden. And we can also consider, and we can also be a support when it comes to strategic choice of measures, as well as planning and how we are building. That is part of our core assignment. And when it comes to how we contribute to climate transition within the transportation sector, it's all about vehicles, fuel, and transport efficient society. Electrified railway, greatest contribution today actually, and we have a huge task in making the railway system to work. It's very important for us.
Thank you so much for joining, gentlemen. Big applause for them. And now I'm going to hand back to our host for some final remarks, Mr. Erik von Pistolkors and Cecilia Schlin Seidegård. Yes, we are slightly ahead of time, but you have to come up anyway, because I have no more jokes, so you have to take it away.
So we can talk for 15 minutes. Should you start?
Well, okay, I'll start. That saves me being the last speaker, which is always a bit an enviable position to be, especially if you're between the crowd and the drinks afterwards. But anyway, listen, I have to say, I have to hand it to you, Mr. Moderator, and I have to hand it to Viable Cities. Thank you for such a dynamic and fascinating event, especially for me in my capacity as acting head of the Commission office here. I really appreciate the take part in these kind of events to see actually what's going on the ground, what's happening with various, in the municipalities and across the country. So thank you for that. That's all I can say. It's been a privilege to host you. I really hope that I'll see you here next year again for it's a promise. Whether I'll be in this position is another question. But thanks a lot. A lot of interesting things. I mean, I did note down a few things. I've got a bunch of one-liners here from teamwork, closing the gaps. We can't do it alone. What else? Mayors are part of the solution. That's pretty clear. Private-public partnership, etc. So, I mean, I think this is a very dynamic, as I said before, event and a process. So, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Now, over to you. You're the last speaker. Sorry.
You never know. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for hosting us. I think, unfortunately, you stole my... I was going to say something about science, because I think it was very important that you brought that up. It's about science, and we have to support that. And then I thought of saying something about the Nobel Week here. But you stole that quote from me. But it's not only about science, I would say. It's also about knowledge. We can't all be scientists. We have to share knowledge between the cities. Today we have honored the local work, all the cities. And that's very important, because most of the work is done locally. And you have your citizens around you. You have the possibility to influence Sweden and the world a lot, and I hope you will take that challenge. But we also have to share between the cities, and we have also learned very recently that there are other levels that we have to coordinate our work with. On a regional level, for instance, it's very important. Many of the decisions and the money arrives at the regional level, and we have to make sure that we coordinate it, and of course, nationally. And that's why we have all the national agencies with us, and that's we are very proud of that. But also, finally, we only have one world, and we have to coordinate our work within Europe, within EU and the EU Commission, and also, as we have seen today, the UN. There is only one world, and we have to take care of it and work together to make it better and to make it so we can live here forever. Our children can live here. So it's a very important meeting going on now about biodiversity. I hope we will see some results, and that our politicians and others will be brave. We need some braveness, actually, to be able to do this. So thank you very much for hosting us. I look forward to see you next year. I hope there will be lots of actions performed at the city levels, and I look forward to listen to that next year. Thank you very much.
Eller sånt, och ni som representerar städer
Hej! För 1 år sedan ungefär så bestämde sig Borlänge i bräschen och jobbar med de här hållbarhetsfrågorna. Det här är väldigt inspirerande för andra företag, så idag så har vi en hel kö med företag som vill vara med och ansluta till det här arbetet. Vi ser också att det har gjort oss attraktiva som inflyttnings- och etableringsort. Vi har företag som redan har flyttat in, sådana som är på väg. Och bland annat så byggs det en batterifabrik här i Borlänge just nu. Men av hävd så är vi en gammal industriort. Vi har gammal tung industri och vi har ny industri. Och att se hur de jobbar med sitt klimatarbete, det är otroligt inspirerande. Det handlar mycket om innovation och utveckling och mycket har gett eko i hela världen. 1/5 av alla våra utsläpp i stan härrör sig till förbränning av avfall. Här har vi ett stort jobb att göra, men med hjälp utav att det var lättare att sortera rätt och informationsinsatser och differentierade taxor så har vi under det här året minskat mängden avfall till förbränning med så mycket som 10%. Det är vi stolta över. Vi jobbar också aktivt med vår stadsmiljö. Bland annat så bygger vi om gatorna så vi får mera plats för cyklister och gångtrafikanter och mindre plats för bilarna. Det blir inte bara klimatvänligt, det blir också mycket trevligare stad tack vare det. Vi jobbar avslutningsvis också med maten som serveras i kommunal regi. Bland annat skolmaten. Här har vi legat i topp i Sverige i många år med närproducerat och ekologiskt. Det fortsätter vi såklart med. Men som ni vet, den som slutar att bli bättre slutar att vara bra. Och vi fortsätter hela tiden att jobba aktivt med vårt klimatarbete. För vi vill ju ligga i framkant, både nu och i framtiden.
Välkommen till ett snöigt Linköping. Jag heter Mikael Sanfridsson och är borgmästare i staden. Linköping växer så det knakar. Vi har passerat 165 000 invånare och siktet är inställt på 250 000 om några år såklart. Vårt valspråk är Linköping där idéer blir verklighet. Vår styrka är samverkan mellan akademin, forskningen, samhället, näringslivet och företagen. Det ska vi dra nytta av i klimatomställningen framöver. Tillsammans med Linköpings universitet, teknikföretagen i Linköping Science Park, Östergötland och Tekniska verken så får det samarbetet en stor påverkan på klimatomställningsarbetet i Linköping. Det är också en väldigt innovativ miljö som möjliggör den här utvecklingen och som också bidrar till att företagen kan utvecklas och utveckla sina idéer i en innovativ miljö. Ett av våra senaste utvecklingsprojekt i staden är Tekniska verkens arbete med att utveckla en ackumulatortank för att kunna lagra hetvatten i fjärrvärmenätet för att kapa energitopparna i samband med kallt väder. Två viktiga resultat som vi ändå kan se när vi mäter målen är för det första att koldioxidutsläppen per invånare har minskat med 35% samtidigt som stadens befolkning har ökat med 18 000. Klart att det finns mer att göra, men det är ändå glädjande att kunna se resultatet. Samtidigt så har solelsproduktionen i Linköping ökat med 460% de senaste åren och utbyggnaden fortsätter. Vi har alldeles nyligen tagit ett nytt klimat- och energiprogram med målsättningar framåt. Och nu så pågår arbetet med att forma den praktiska handlingsplanen som ska tas hela vägen fram. Det här arbetet ska ske tillsammans med forskningen, näringslivet, men det ska också ske tillsammans med föreningsliv, civilsamhället och medborgarna. Och en del i det här programmet handlar om att den här klimatomställningen ska ske på ett rättvist sätt och värderas utifrån de här olika gruppernas intressen och situationer.
Jag heter Anders Almgren och jag är ordförande i kommunstyrelsen i Lunds kommun. Lund är Sveriges äldsta stad med en lång och rik historia. Men samtidigt är Lund platsen där vi skapar framtiden. Få andra platser har alstrat lika många innovationer och nya lösningar som har flugit över världen. 2030 ska Lund vara en klimatneutral och fossilbränslefri kommun. men också en kommun som är anpassad till ett klimat i förändring. Det är väldigt högt uppsatta mål, men det är också vad som krävs. Vår ambition är att hela Lund och alla aktörer här, organisationer och enskilda, offentliga och privata, aktivt ska arbeta tillsammans för att nå detta mål. I Lund är vi idag nästan 130 000 invånare och för mig är ett ambitiöst klimatarbete en självklarhet för att skapa en attraktiv kommun där andra vill bo och verka och leva. Lund präglas mer än något av närheten och samarbetet med Lunds universitet. Och vår väg till att ställa om till ett hållbart samhälle bygger på fakta, innovation och samverkan. Till exempel så granskas vår klimatpolitik varje år av vårt klimatpolitiska råd med ledande forskare inom området. Lund har tagit flera stora steg i klimatarbetet redan, inte minst när vi införde 100% fossilbränslefri fjärrvärme. Och det senaste året har vi fortsatt arbetet med en ny avfallsplan och en plan för klimatneutralt och cirkulärt byggande. Vi har också köpt in mer fossilbränslefria arbetsredskap och vi har haft ett ungdomsting som var dedikerat enbart till klimatarbetet. Vi har tagit fram en pendlarkarta och vi har satsat mer på samåkning. Vi har också påbörjat ett storskaligt innovationsprojekt kopplat till energi och mobilitet i norra Lund. Och vi fortsätter att engagera näringsliv och organisationer för att vara med i omställningen. Vi är nu också en internationell förebild i egenskap av att vara årets globala klimatstad enligt Världsnaturfonden. Och vi är en av de 100 städer i EU som man utsett att gå före för att bli klimatneutrala just 2030. Det innebär att Lund mer än någonsin också ska visa vägen för andra. Nästa steg för oss för att öka takten i omställningen är utvecklingen av en klimatinvesteringsplan där vi ska visa hur gröna investeringar gynnar hela Lund. Vi satsar också på cirkulärt byggande i den nya stadsdelen Västerbro och ännu fler hållbara transporter. Vi ska också införa en växthusgasbudget där minskningarna i utsläpp steg för steg kopplas till kraftfulla och konkreta åtgärder och vi ska stärka arbetet med egen grön hållbar energiproduktion. Allt det här och mycket mer händer i Lund. Här skapar vi framtiden med kunskap, innovation och öppenhet.